Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season 3 finale of From. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So there is a lot, so I'm going to break this down section by section. Let's focus on the Fatima stuff immediately. So, as I figured, Ellis kind of picked up on what Elgin was putting down last episode, being like, okay, you sound a little weird. So he goes, tells Kenny and his dad, like, yo, I think Elgin has something to do with Fatima's disappearance. He thinks like, okay, this is something good, that this is right. Now they immediately read the signs as like, because it's like, well, we heard someone else talk like this before. We understand what pushed Sarah to do what she was doing because she thought she was doing good. It's like this place probably finally got to him. Well, that's even the thing of Ellis being like, yeah, either his mind is broken because this place finally got to him, or something is talking to him about it, just like a voice was talking to Sarah. So, in fact, that Kenny and Ellis go to stop Elgin from leaving Colony House. Boyd shows up with Sarah trying to get her to talk Elgin down. Had Donna clear the entire house. Luckily, there wasn't a lot of people there because everyone's out searching. But also, the less people that are around. For one, with Sarah being there, there'll be a lot more complications with Sarah being there. But also, the last thing you want is people interfering, because if the general public finds out, like, it sounds weird to say the general public considering the town, but when it comes to like everyone in town finding out that Elgin had something to do with Fatima's disappearance, but nothing they said could reach him because he does believe, he's using the Bible as an example. I mean, it ends up tying in beautifully where it's like, right, like him and Sarah, they first met at the church, and obviously he is a God-fearing person. Like I completely forgotten about that until they had kind of brought that up. But him talking about the Bible, because I think that was like his grandmother that raised him on the Bible and stuff. So it's like, because him thinking the woman in the kimono is an angel, I guess for him it's like, because angels aren't like, I guess like we have like the depiction of what angels look like now, but like I think like there are, obviously we want to think about like someone mistaken as an angel. Take Midnight Mass, for example. No spoilers, but if you've seen Midnight Mass, you know what I'm talking about. So it is that interesting thing of like, yeah, like you could have like, because I think aren't like, even just from the Bible, aren't angels kind of like, maybe I'm just basing this on like Shin Megami Tensei and stuff like that, how angels are very demonic looking and can be scary looking, and they're not as like angelic as you think they are, or at least the preconceived notions we have of what they look like. So I guess that could be why Elgin got sucked into this, because he's so desperate to be the one who is able to help everyone. Like this place latched on him from the very beginning. So, but yeah, he doesn't want to tell them where Fatima is, because he's like, hey, the baby's going to be born, and they're like, no, there was no baby. It's like, if what you're saying is true, what's in Fatima can't be a baby. It's got to be something else growing. But it's like, yeah, he's saying like, no, she's already showing, because like Donna was like, that'd be months away even if she was pregnant. He's like, no, you should see her belly. And Ellis obviously flipped out because his wife is in danger, especially because Elgin was like, yeah, I felt so bad like when you told me about your mom. And he's like, I didn't want you to go through that again. He was a lot more forthcoming than he kind of had no choice, considering like they caught you with a bag of supplies and you were going to leave. It's like, oh, where are you about to go? You know where Fatima is, and he just won't give up the information. So Boyd decides to go down the whole, wait, where are your tools? You're like, oh boy, you're gonna torture him. It's like, that's the sad thing of like, this is the farthest like Boyd is kind of going. And of course, the moment he was getting the tools, I was like, Father Cautry's got to show up. Good to be your Jiminy Cricket, isn't it? And lo and behold, there he is. And he's like, you can't do this. He talks about the hypocrisy, because it's like, right, you didn't tell anyone. Hell, Kenny's up there still not knowing the truth about what happened with Tilly, because like everyone else there knows about the Tilly situation. I think Sarah does too. I could be mistaken. I don't remember if Sarah knows, but obviously Donna, Ellis, and Boyd know. But she might not know. But either way, Kenny, at the very least, the way Cautry was saying it seems like maybe she does know, and I just don't remember her knowing. But either way, Kenny's definitely the one who should know and doesn't know, because he got lied to again because of the whole Sarah situation as well. So it's like history repeating itself in that way. But when it's all said and done, though, Khattri's trying to tell him, like, right, you have this hypocrisy because it's like, right, that kid is innocent too. Like, what about Fatima? You're willing to, like, not condemn Fatima, but condemn him. It's like, well, it's not her fault. It's like, well, yes, just like it's not Elgin's fault, this place got to his head. So it's like, right, you're willing to always go above and beyond to protect your family, but fuck everyone else in the process, because it's like, right, that's his daughter-in-law. That's family. And it's like, yes, but your job is to, like, look out for the greater good. Like, your job is to protect these people, and you're losing that slowly more and more. But it's like, what am I supposed to do? And Khattri's like, that's the whole reason why it's called a rock in a hard place, not a rock in a very comfortable place. He's like, if you do this, you'll be letting this place win. This place wanted to break you, right? Then you're just going to be playing right into its hands, because he said, you do this. This is going to be the person you're going to be from now on. This will be the defining moment. Like, and I was wondering, when it was all said and done, would Boyd cross that line? And he ultimately does. Because I was still like, oh man, it feels like at any moment he's going to back down. But he doesn't. But, you know, given his opportunity, like, because this place is also, once again, this place wants him to do that. Once again, you have stuff like, there are some good ghosts and people here. You have the kids, you have the boy in white, and you have Khatri here, like, not being once again, his conscience. But what set him over the edge was the photo from the camera was the house that him and his wife were going to retire to. In fact, they were on their way to that house when they first got to this place. So you're like, oh, it's that place taking the knife and twisting it. It knew exactly what it needed to do, the push Boyd over the edge, to push him this far. It's like to break him. It's like, right, because he's still torn up about it. Even when he's about to bash Elgin's hands, he's like, just tell me where she is. And he's looking away because he's like, damn it, I don't want to do this. Because at his heart, he's doing the best he can, but it's a thing of this place wants to corrupt you, because they recognize how much of a good man you are, how a good person you are, how you want to look out for everyone, how you're trying your best. But this place needs to corrupt you. It needs to break you, because it makes it that much more delicious, you know? And so he smashes Elgin's hand. I was like, oh, I was kind of hoping you weren't going to do it. But Acosta came back, fortunately in time, and pulled him away from all that. You're like, damn. Which, I mean, damn in the good. It's like, oh, but like I said, I was hoping that Boyd wasn't going to do it, but he did it. But then Sarah snuck off on her own, and I was like, she's going to handle it. Because we go back to that line, like, earlier this season. What did Victor say? He's like, oh, I want to keep you around. Can you be here with me? Because this whole situation when I'm trying to remember stuff is going to be scary, but you are the scariest thing in town because of what she did. And it's that thing of, she is viewed as a monster by everyone, in herself included. So it is this thing of, she's like, I get it, no one else is going to really understand. But it's like, Fatima could get hurt, but he's like, no, she's not going to. It's like, Sarah's like, I believe this place once upon a time, and I did a lot of terrible things. But for her, it's like, Boyd doesn't know he won't go far enough. Because, like I said, the moment she went in there and left, I was like, she's going to be the monster. Because it's like, I'm already the monster. Why don't I fill that role? She's like, Boyd is a good man, and I'm not going to let this place take his soul. It's already taken mine. Because she had talked to Elgin. She's like, when you first got here, I felt bad for you. Because when she looked at Elgin, she saw herself. She was a pure and innocent girl who was turned into what she is. And that's the thing. She's not a monster. This place just manipulated her. No more than Tilly's a monster. I mean, no more than Fatima being a monster, or no more than Elgin being a monster. This place just does that to people. I mean, argument considering what Boyd did. Granted, he didn't go far. He got one hand, but he was going to go a lot further, but even then, he would have never gone far enough. And Sarah's like, fine, I'll be the one. This place already has my soul. I'm already damned. I'm already doomed. So why don't I do a little more evil on top of everything else? And I was curious what she did, and we saw the aftermath. She popped Elgin's eye out. You're like, Jesus. But she's like, right, I know exactly where Fatima is. Like, once again, I will play the role of the monster if need be. You're like, damn, dude, that is insane. Hey, it's effed up to say, but Sarah's kind of the MVP in this situation. So there's other plot threads. The Jade Jim and Tatiana, I'm saying Tatiana, sorry, Tabitha stuff, I'm gonna save that for last, and then fill in the gaps with like some of the other story beats. So catching up with Fatima, she plans on cutting whatever it is out of her. She smashes the mason jar that had like all the blood in it, and then she starts to try and cut her chest, her stomach open. But the woman in kimono stops her because it's like, oh, it's time, and she's giving birth. So that's happening. We have the interesting conversation between Julie and Ethan, which is really sad because he's like, "What if I end up forgetting Tien Chen? I want to keep remembering what she was like." And it's like, "Why are you worried about that?" I thought his concern was going to be because of Victor. Because Victor ended up blotting out a lot of terrible stuff, and he had to have the drawings to remember, but there's so much he doesn't remember because he didn't think to draw it down, right? Or he was so traumatized at the time, it's like, I don't want to remember this ever, so I'm not going to draw it. So there's that. But it was about his brother Thomas. It's like, well, their brother Thomas. It's like, I'm starting to not remember a lot about him. But either way, Julie ends up explaining and because she didn't really have nothing to say, because I guess like it is that thing of she probably doesn't know what to say to comfort him in that moment. But it ties into what she says because she brings up her experience inside the ruins, and now she's like, Ethan calls her a story walker. Basically, the story that's already been told, you can go back and check it. And I love how that ties into the very ending of the episode. I was like, oh my God, that's so good. We introduced that because we saw she was kind of time traveling, which I thought was interesting. Which is fascinating because Ethan said, like, because she's like, oh, I could go back in time. Maybe I could save Tien Chen, or maybe I could save Thomas. But he was like, you can't do that. She's like, the rules are, and once again, this is based off of like, that story, that type of ability could change depending on the fiction. But from Ethan's perspective, it's like, no, like, you can go back, you can observe the situation, you can't change it. Which is interesting considering, like, well, she did change it, didn't she? Because she's the one that dropped the rope so that Boyd could get out. So it's like, she's the one that did that. But maybe the fact is, maybe it was actually someone else that did it. And I don't know, because that seems to be the massive exception there. It's like, because if it was any other situation, it would have been Julie finding someone else there, letting the rope down. But it's like, no, it was Julie who did it. So I'm like, so that means she can to some extent, right? Maybe it's unclear. The ending kind of showcases maybe she can't. That's super unclear, but I don't know. That is really interesting. Then we also had the whole situation with Marielle and Randall. Randall's like, the buzzing got so much that he tried to use like a defibrillator on his own head. But luckily, Marielle like stopped him before then. And, obviously for Christy, it's like, okay, I've tried to be respectful, but what the hell is going on? Like, are you okay? It's like, Julie went through what she went through. Randall's literally breaking down like now. It's like, you seem to be the only one pretending like everything is okay, which Randall talked to her about that like a couple episodes ago. And she's like, at the end of the day, she's like, I'm not okay. It's like, well, Julie is like, it seems like Randall's situation is specific to him. Like Julie, it's like she's got that like unending fear, that like severe dread that she's always kind of feeling. But like I said, Randall seems the only one that kind of manifests psychologically as those bugs and stuff. But we have no idea because Marielle's kind of kept it, like she's buried it deep. And I wonder, is that just a byproduct of, well, she has, as we know, she has a drug addiction. So it's like, it could just be a thing of, as an addict, she's used to burying stuff so well. But also it's like Chrissy has noticed the signs, but she's tried not to prod. She wanted to make sure that, Marielle came to her and felt comfortable enough talking about, I don't want to bring up this terrible stuff about what you went through. But it's like, nah, seeing what happened to Julie, Randall, this situation, it's like, no, 2 of the 3 people who were connected to this situation are going through it. So that's the last we see of Marielle. So I wonder, has there been anything like that with her situation, or has it just been a dread situation more like Julie's? Because it does seem like this place really puts the screws to Randall more than it does anyone else. But I should have probably finished this up earlier when talking about the whole Fatima thing. Now that they know where Fatima is, they go to her. It's Kenny, Ellis, and Boyd. But by the time they got there, the woman in kimono already took the baby and she went down because everything that was going on with Jim, Jade, and Tabitha, I thought that the music, I thought that's why the door opened when it did. But it seems like that's unrelated. It just happened to happen at the same time. It's like, oh, this door just opens at a very specific time. And so now that the baby's been born, it's time for her to leave. So she goes down. Boyd follows after because he's like, no, we need to find out what this is all about. And as he's traveling down, Fatima tells Ellis and Kenny what this is all about. The monster. She's like, I know what they really are. As I thought, like, what was happening to Fatima, I was like, oh, are they trying to monsterify her? Are they trying to do the same thing to Randall? As I figured as much, I was like, they look too human. These things were human at one point in time. They were the people, I think, that just lived in this town way back in the day. Something evil here promised them, hey, all you have to do is sacrifice your children and you'll live forever. But it's always kind of like the monkey paw situation of be careful what you wish for. There's always going to be a dual side to it. So I wonder how much of them is still in there, like who they were, or did they become complete monsters upon striking the deal with the devil? So, like, are they still like who they were before, and has that been eroded over and over the course of the years? Or is there some part of them still there and they're just evil now, or becoming monsters completely eroded their soul? So whatever was human in them has long since died. I'm curious how that works. Was it an immediate thing? Was it over time? They had to give into their monster instincts until they stopped being human. But someone had said this last episode. I have to go back to look at the comment. Someone had said, like, oh, this is about reincarnation. I'm like, I could see why you probably, maybe there was clues last episode, but I was like, this had something to do with reincarnation. And I was like, how did you catch that? Because that happens like a twofold thing in this episode. Like, there is a massive reincarnation theme. And I was like, I wasn't catching that, but someone else did. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, I'd have to go back to the comment because it was from like last week's episode. So I'm trying to figure out, like, I'd have to go back and read it. Like, I caught glimpses of that, and I remember distinctly seeing the word like reincarnation. I was like, that's fascinating. I was like, where did you get that from? But maybe it's like some of the stuff with Tabitha, like maybe that's what clicked in their mind of like that's what this was about. Maybe, like I said, I had to read a comment, but maybe they were specifically talking about the baby situation in Fatima. Once again, the baby was not her, so it's like, was someone trying to be reborn? And we find out who it was. I was like, oh, because this episode, I was like, who could it be? Is it going to be someone we're familiar with? And it ends up being like, oh, right, it's the one monster that died. And I was like, all right, that's also the same monster that killed Miranda, isn't it? And lo and behold, it is. Yeah, he's back. I was like, so has this happened before? Like, was that the first time any of them, the monsters, have ever died? And I guess, like, the fact is you can come back to life is interesting, which also proves, hey, Elgin, you were completely and utterly wrong. This whole thing wasn't about getting you home. It was about resurrecting one of the monsters. Like, this whole thing wasn't, like, could they have stopped it? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. At the very least, they wouldn't have been able to help this situation along. So you kind of screwed over everyone because you brought one of the monsters back. You helped bring one of the monsters back, playing into all this. So you were in fact wrong, Elgin, and this is on you. So just like Sarah's got her guilt, you're going to have yours about all this. But yeah, like, the thing came back. I guess, like, as long they have immortality, so I guess I'm curious how that works. Because it's like, well, they're supposed to be immortal, so I guess as long as you find, like, a suitable means to bring them back, they can always come back, maybe. Like I said, I don't know if that's the first time that one of them has ever died or not. I mean, for this process to already be here must mean this has happened at some point. Those worms, it can't be the first time, like those worms that Boyd got from Martin. It's like, it can't be the first time that's ever happened. Like, someone else has probably had the worms that they end up helping kill those. And, like, who knows how long this place has been around, how far it dates back. So a lot of missing information on that front. It feels poetic that the one person who would witness this would be Boyd, considering Boyd is also said one who killed said monster. I don't know why I phrased it like that, but yeah. So fascinating developments on that front. And now finally, let's switch over to the Tabitha, Jim, and Jade of it all. Oh wait, there was another story beat I forgot about. Before that, I'm so sorry. I knew there. I was like, there was something else I'm missing, and I wanted to talk about. It's like, right, it's the Victor and Henry of it all, and Henry wants to talk to Victor, especially after the conversation he had with Jade last episode. He's like, right, I just want to make things right, and Victor's like, right, I'm gonna show you something. You're gonna hate me. You're not gonna want to have anything to do with me. And the thing he shows them, I figured it had to be with what he remembered. Last episode, well, episode 8, but also like tying into episode 9, was what he remembered now, and he blamed himself, and he took Henry to Miranda at Eloise's graves that he made, where you're just like, once again, just like, let's make the Victor thing even sadder, because once again, he buried a lot of those bodies himself, because who knows like how long it was before, because he had to survive. Yeah, once again, it's like he had to survive on his own. It probably wasn't until more recent years when the people like Donna and them first got here. But like those past decades, I think he was off on his own. Like maybe there was some people that had came in between. I don't know if they've ever really talked about that. Like post everyone dying, and then like Donna and them showing up, like how much time had passed in between, and how many people were there and died in the process, whatever the case may be. But yeah, that just the thing of like he was a little kid having to bury his mom. He also buried what little he could find of his sister. He's like, she was so small and they had ripped her to pieces, so there wasn't much left to be found. And he blamed himself. He's like, it's my fault. I overheard Christopher talking to the boy in white, and I told mom, and that's why she went out there. In fact, now I don't know if Tabitha told him what she saw, where it's like she never actually made it to the tree. She was killed by, once again, the same one that Boyd ended up killing. Um, but yeah, he's blaming himself, and he's just like, right, if I never said anything, mom would still be alive. So would Eloise, because Eloise only left because she was following after their mom because she was scared, and he was just too scared to move or do anything and stayed behind. So there's just so much guilt compounded upon itself. But he's like, you should pretend like I'm not your son. You should pretend like I'm dead because that's what I should be. But then like Henry grabs him. He's like, don't you ever say that. You know, you are my son and I am your dad, and that will never change. Nothing will ever change that. Your mom did what she did because she's trying to protect you. Do not like take that upon yourself, because you were just a little boy. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know what was going to happen. So don't take that upon yourself. He's like, your mom tried to protect you, and as your father, that's what I'm here to do. I'm going to look after you. I'm going to protect you. It's my job, you know? And I think that means a lot coming, even, I mean, obviously it already means a lot coming from Henry, but it means even more because we know Henry has had guilt over that very thing of feeling like, right, I thought it would be better off you. Like, the fact is he's thought that, and he's disgusted with himself for even thinking that for a second. And to hear Victor say it, he's like, no, don't ever think that, don't ever feel that. You don't deserve that guilt, son, you know? So that was a legitimately, that whole sequence made me tear up, because I was like, Jesus, that made me sad as shit. Because I'm like, that whole situation is fucked up and tragic. So we had that, and now moving on to the Tabitha, Jim, and Jade of it all, where Tabitha told Jim what she saw last episode, and she's like, it wasn't a vision, it just felt more real, because it's all, you know. And then he goes to the one person he hopes can help, and he turns to Jade. He's like, yo, I'm sorry about the way I was acting, but I was just scared. I don't know how to help and protect my wife and my family, but I think you do. So they talk. And so Jade has had visions, yes, but he's like, yeah, but it's never been a thing of, yeah, when I saw the Civil War soldier, it's not like I teleported timeline-wise to the Civil War. It's like, no, that ghost is just here present day. And so for him, he's talking about, like, you know, was it the first law of dynamics of, like, energy cannot be created or destroyed. That basically that energy still exists here. So Miranda died here, right? So maybe her energy still persists, and she was trying to point you in the right direction. The kids wanted you to know what Miranda knew, so they went to where they saw the kids. And I love Jade kind of shouting out, like, you're dicking us around, because piecing it together, the kids, the tree, the symbol, the tree supposed to being like all their hopes and everything, and the wishes being poured into the roots, and that's what gave birth to what is the bottle tree. So it's like, right, you should have just told us. I'll sit here and wait for an answer. Funny enough, it was Jim who figured it out, because he's like, how do we know the numbers aren't nonsense? We don't. But it's like, they've got to be significant. Miranda like also made the bottle tree as well. But then it's like, Jim's the one that's like, well, what if they're musical notes? And then not musical notes, chords. And so that sparks, and he's like, 10 cup, you're a fucking genius. And so it's like, Vince, not have I been called? I hope I haven't been calling him Vince, and I still keep making that. I don't know why the name Vincent comes first. I think because I made that one mistake on my Nerd Mode video, which you can still find that online. Like, that's there. That mistake, I just couldn't do anything about it. I realized it well too late, and I was like, I could always take it down and re-upload it, but fuck that. The mistake's there. It is what it is. So Victor has violin. It's in your basement. And I love Jimmy like, why is it in the basement? He's like, because he tried to hide it from me because I kept taking it. But yeah, like, for whatever reason, Jade immediately kind of, like, after recognizing the chords, he starts playing and humming it, but then he starts keep going and going, and Tabitha's almost like, wait, what? And even Jim shows up being like, wait, why do you know that song? And I thought it was going to be a song they all knew or something, but it's like, no. He's like, just came in my head. And then like Jim's like, shouldn't we be concerned about that? Remember how Boyd talked about the music blocks that try to kill people? And then like there's the music in the diner that constantly turns on. Shouldn't we be a little spooky of any music that just suddenly popped into your head? So it's like, right, this could be some evil music. So it's like, where should we go to like, oh, probably don't want to do it out in the woods. Oh, let's do it around the bottle tree. That's where we found the chords anyway, the numbers. And it's like, what's the radius on an evil song? So to go out there, Jade plays it, and then the kids show up, and you're just like, what is this all about? And you tie that in with what Fatima said, because I think they had said that previously about the kids being sacrificed. I think Victor learned that in episode 8, right? So, no, that was episode 8. We learned that, I believe. So, as they're doing their thing and drawing the kids in, and they're talking to Tabitha, and it's just like, we finally hear what Akui means. Akui means remember. I don't know. I wonder, why is it Akui? Like, what's the significance of Akui? Like, is it a different word, or it might be a thing of, it's probably a made up language that like the kids and some other adults made up, and that's why it's significant. It's probably like an old like word they made, like, oh, we'll make up our own little cute language, and a Kui was like their word for remember. And it's like, what are they supposed to remember? And then Tabitha and Jade remember something, and it's just like, wait, what's going on? And Jim had to confront her, and she says, I'm Miranda and he's Christopher. I was like, so this is what your reincarnations, and they're not the first. They're like, we failed over and over and over again. We tried to stop the kids from being sacrificed, and they were saying, like, I think she said like one of the kids that was sacrificed was their daughter, I think is what she was saying, and that was the Eloise, not Eloise, but that also sucked. We'll get to that in a second, but because that's what I was thinking about. But I guess her and Christopher in maybe their first life were together. They had a child, and said child was one of the sacrifices. But basically, every time they've been reincarnated over and over and over again, trying to fix this, like try to stop all this, but they failed every time. The last time was as Christopher and Miranda. I wonder, is that what the boy in white was also trying to tell Christopher about, like them being reincarnations? Like maybe that's what, maybe he also was trying to deny that truth as well. Maybe that's part of why he was like, no, this is all bullshit. But now it also ties into why Tabitha had that dream as a kid. Like, she was always meant to be bound to this place. Why her and Jade are the ones that specifically saw the kids. So it's like, right, you're tied to this place. The reason why Miranda had visions of this place long before getting here, just like Tabitha did, because you're remembering your previous life. So Tabitha is that little girl hiding behind those rocks. Which past life was that then? Was that her, like, well, we saw, because that was during the day. It wasn't even at night either. So maybe that was early on. Like maybe that might have been during her first life or something like that. Who knows? Like how many times have you repeated this cycle, this system? But you're just like, Jesus, that's a lot to chew on. Plus, because now it makes sense why all those memories started coming back. Like when she was touching stuff, it's like she was getting closer and closer to the truth. And why those weren't visions of Miranda, those were her memories. And now it also makes you feel a little crazy because you're like, maybe that's also why Henry felt the comfortability around Tabitha. He could never figure out why. And this also explains for Tabitha why there's the bracelet she made for Jim, why. That's why she thought like, oh, this is all in my own head when she found one in Henry's. But Henry was like, yeah, like my wife made it. It's like, because you're the same person. I was like, I was not expecting that twist. Holy shit. And also bringing Jaden to be like, oh, he's Christopher. So it's so interesting how this all ties together, especially all the time. Like, which is so poetic too, considering like oh my God, is that who Jade keeps seeing all the time? Because he's the one that is seeing. I was like, no, because like because I was about to say he saw what's his face, the bartender, and then obviously Boyd is seeing Cautry. But I was about to say like the Civil War soldier. I was like, is that supposed to be? Was that Jade in a previous life? Is that some of the people he's seeing? Because one of the people like he saw was like last episode was Christopher. So you're like, so at least two of the people we saw, at least one was you in a previous life, in not just a previous life, the previous life. So maybe the same thing for the Civil War soldier and stuff like that. I'm like, is that what that's? Because that's an interesting thing. Because like Tabitha had that experience up until now, like the memories with Miranda. But like I said, it's like, right, Vincent's kind of your son, which feels poetic considering Ethan kind of gets along with Victor. But then you also think about, well, if you were Miranda, that means you also lost your daughter here, Eloise, but apparently you also had a daughter in a previous life that was sacrificed. Who knows what your other reincarnations were like. It's a lot to process, dude. You're just like, fuck me. That's a lot. That's heavy. And that, like I said, that was not the twist in development. Didn't even have that on my bingo card. So I was like, that's interesting. So filling in a lot of gaps there. And they even play that scene from Jim being like, from season 1 being like, yeah, like kind of going back to the way things were. He was talking about in the context of at the time of like, yeah, some form of normalcy before, like obviously Thomas's death like rattled and shook that family. But now it's also like, oh, you give anything to go back before like this place and finding out the truth about all this. But you were always, as Jade said, always meant to come here because you're just always in this cycle of why them specifically. Like that same thing that made it so that they become immortal, the monsters of this place. Maybe the same thing is what allows them to constantly come back. You know what it kind of reminded me of? It's kind of a spoilers. It's a spoiler from The Magician. Specifically, it's season 1. There's an element of... There's a system, or rather spell in place to make it so like, hey, we didn't do this right, so we have a redo. That was more like we're constantly rewinding time, changing things a little bit, our approach differently. This is just a full-blown, like, you're reincarnated in a completely different life. That's the difference there, but still. I don't know, that was like the immediate thing that came to my mind. I'm sure there are other examples to use, but that's the one that like first popped into my head, so... that is wild. And then we get to the end where Julie shows up. I was like, oh, she's dressed differently. I was like, oh my gosh, she's story walking. Oh my God, something bad happened. She's like, oh my God, this is before it all went down. I wonder if the current events are what's going to lead to a repeat of what happened to Victor, where it's like, yeah, everyone just suddenly died. Once again, he doesn't know how they did, but Julie's came back here. I was like, oh, I guess she was trying to stop like her dad's death ultimately. But then a guy pops up and it's like, he's like, oh, I try to warn you, Jim, you shouldn't have let your wife dig. Like the fact is there has to be a cost to knowing, like, you know, some knowledge, there has to be a price to pay. So trying to protect Julie, he ends up getting his throat ripped open. You're like, fuck. Well, there's no one doing that because, once again, apparently she's not supposed to be able to change anything. Once again, I still go back to the example of she dropped the rope for Boyd. So I'm like, apparently she can, but I don't know. She still tried though. So that's Julie at some point in the future trying to come back to this story point to try and save her dad's life. But I guess whoever he is, whether he's the devil incarnate or what, he's the thing that I guess they pray to. Because he's not one of the monsters because it's not nighttime. He's out and about during the day. Plus, he's the one that's kind of reached it. So I guess he's the one that's in particular has kind of been trying to fuck with Jim this season. So, especially because Jim's trying to be there, being supportive, being helpful, and just it's meant to be the gut punch that it is. That his death in particular, I was like, damn, that sucks. Because they worked so hard trying to get his family. They haven't always been in the best place, but he's tried to make things right, especially with Tabitha trying to help her out, figure this all out. And it's just like, damn, dude, that sucks. There was this whole thing, and I think I brought this up in season 1. There's a whole, like, spiderweb situation that was in the woods when Sarah and Boyd were out there. It kind of, and I believe at the time I was like, oh, could the thing out there be kind of a djinn? The reason why I use a djinn, for example, is because going back, I won't mention the game's name again, but there's a video game I played where there's a djinn, but it's represented, it's a monster, but it's in the form of a giant spider. So I was wondering if that was, so, but like, that's who I wonder if that old man is at the end. If he's like, I'm sure he's the main honcho, but what if he's like a spider in human skin type of thing? Like, maybe he is like a demon or djinn, just kind of, but he is like a giant spider weaving these webs. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing that. Because like I said, I do believe that's something I said back in season 1, but I'm not sure. Hell of a way to end the season. Hell of a way, and as of course you got to end with something a little depressing. At least season 2's ending was a little hopeful, but it's like, nah, let's end with a gut punch and obviously more questions. Obviously, at the time of recording this, it was like a few days ago before the finale aired, they announced there is going to be a 4th season. I was just Googling it really quickly, too. Apparently, it's not going into production until sometime in 2025, so I think it was saying, like, there probably won't be a release until 2026. Maybe there might be a late 2025. I'm sure it just depends on production, but it's going to be another... who knows how much of season 4 they've written at all. They might not have even written anything. They probably have ideas for season 4, but no scripts might be written, so it'll probably be partway through the year before we get to, like, they go into proper production, full-blown production and start filming it. So we probably won't be until, like, maybe early-ish 2026 we might get this. So that's what speculated right now. We'll see. Who knows? Stuff could change in between now and then. I don't give a shit. We're getting a 4th season. That's all I cared about. So as long as we're getting more, that's all I need. I know people have their issues with, like, oh, we got to wait like a year and some change or 2 years. I've never had that issue. I understand people's issues with it, but I'm perfectly fine with that. But, that's just me. Either way, I am so excited to see where the hell all of this ends up taking us going forward into season 4. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.